Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Floro. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm one of the program managers at Stanford's Wyland Health Initiative. And I'm honored to be a nominated speaker for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, put on by the Sexual Harassment, Assault Response and Education Title IX Office. The goal of Sexual Assault Awareness Month is to raise public awareness about sexual violence, educate communities on how to prevent it, and bolster prevention efforts throughout the year. As a content warning, I'll be making reference to harm experienced by the queer community in this very short presentation. And I'll also be providing a transcript in case you'd like to follow along on paper. So at Wyland, our mission is to promote mental health and wellness across the spectrum of gender identities and attractions through education, training, and clinical services at Stanford and beyond. As kind of like a queer sibling to CAPS, we provide individual therapy, group therapy, programming, trainings, advocacy, and psychoeducational materials, all centering the needs of queer, trans, and non-binary folks. As such, and as a part of the Wyland Health Initiative, it's imperative that we discuss the needs of queer, trans, and non-binary folks when it comes to sexual assault and other interpersonal violence. Research shows that queer individuals experience assault victimization, sexual assault, and interpersonal violence at higher rates than their non-queer peers. Bisexual femmes, transgender, and gender nonconforming individuals in particular are victimized at even higher rates within the queer community. And these rates are made even more horrifying when looking specifically at queer folks of color, especially Black and Indigenous trans women and femmes. This perpetration of violence can be described as patriarchal violence, a term discussed by the Abolishing Patriarchal Violence Innovation Lab. They define patriarchal violence as an interconnected system of institutions, practices, policies, beliefs, and behaviors that harm, undervalue, and terrorize girls, women, femme, intersex, gender nonconforming, LGBTQ, and other oppressed people in our communities. It's a widespread, normalized epidemic based on the domination, control, and colonizing of bodies, genders, and sexualities. It's also a global power structure that manifests on the systemic, institutional, interpersonal, and internalized level. It is rooted within interlocking systems of oppression. In order to proactively prevent sexual assault and violence, these systems of oppression must be fought and dismantled as individuals and as a campus community. As a campus community, we need to center the experiences of our queer community members. Research shows a clear connection between greater inclusion of queer students and lower rates of sexual assault on campus. And so it's essential that we advocate for campus systems to actively push against oppressive, homophobic, and transphobic policies, messaging, and systems. This should look like supporting non-discrimination policies, including gender and attraction, availability of 4-credit LGBTQ courses, and inclusive symbols like safe zone stickers and training. These campus culture efforts need to be inclusive of the intersectional needs of our community, especially since a lot of LGBTQ organizations and initiatives have historically been grounded in white-centered norms, values, and exclusionary practices. Thus, continued social and institutional support for our queer communities of color through QSR's Black QTs, QT-POC Kickback, Queer SAAM, and student organizations like La Familia, Queer and Asian, and Blacks is essential. Pushing against patriarchal violence also includes continued education, cultural humility, and constant unlearning of socialized and internalized white supremacist norms by all of us. This could and should look like mandatory trainings for all staff and faculty and workers, processes and structures of accountability and reporting, and ongoing open dialogue between queer community members, administrators, and the campus at large. Finally, we must actively advocate against harmful policies, systems, processes, and programming that contribute to or exacerbate patriarchal violence against queer communities. This should take and look like individual and collective approaches, like intervening when homophobic and transphobic messages are shared verbally or in Zoom breakout rooms, protecting our community members from Zoom bombing, and combating victim blaming and other messages that uphold patriarchal violence. More prevention resources can be found at nsvrc.org and sara.stanford.edu. The work of fighting systems is necessary, hard, and sometimes exhausting. In order to stay empowered, passionate, and committed, self-care and self-preservation are absolutely key to this work. Self-care can look like relaxation and taking breaks from social media and the news. It can also look like emotional growth through therapy, setting and enforcing boundaries, expanding coping skills, and pushing against overworking, perfectionism, and urgency. Self care should also include cultivating and maintaining connection with people who make you feel seen, heard, and loved. And finally, self care can include a hopeful and reimagining of the world through exploring movements like community resilience and accountability and transformative justice, which is beautifully explored here in this book that was recommended by my colleague Deb Schneider called Beyond Survival. For more information, feel free to check out the Share Education's team website, Wyland's website, or you can email me at mfloro@stanford.edu. Thank you for watching, participating in Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and thank you for your continued fight against patriarchal violence on behalf of our queer communities and all communities harmed by patriarchal violence.